So if I was ever to get that call from Ghostface and he's like, "What's your favorite scary movie?" It would be Scream. Scream's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's just so good. It has so many great things about it, but it's the first movie that really got me into horror. I saw it very early on. It came out in 1996, which is the same year I was born, so it has so much relevance to my life. And it's so cool to go back and look at all these things now because it's the first series that I collected too. I mean, I have a huge movie collection now, and I have a bunch of the Screams on not only DVD but 4K, and I'm even trying to get them on VHS so I can relive all that kind of stuff. And it just means so much to me. I used to have a Scream costume that I don't have anymore, but I might get a mask again soon. But it's just so cool to me that it's still existing and that there's a Scream 6 coming out in just next week. Actually, no, it comes out at the end of this week. I almost forgot. I'm seeing it in a couple days, and I'm so excited to see it. I love all of these movies, but right now, I want to give you a ranking of all these movies and how I feel about them and a little bit of my history behind them. I do want to give a shout out to that Scream TV series that came out on MTV in I want to say the late 2010s, maybe mid 2010s. It was pretty cool. It pays homage to the series that Wes started, and it honestly was probably the last Scream thing that he saw before he unfortunately passed away in 2015. And I think it pays homage to a couple things that he did, and it kind of almost brought a new life to the series. Had all the satire in there, but still had to dumb it down and to bring down a lot of the violence for TV. But Lee Janik, who actually directed the Fear Street movies on Netflix, she directed a few of the best episodes of that show. So if you want to check it out, I think it's worth checking out, especially if you're a Scream fan. So I just wanted to give it its flowers, and let's jump into the bottom, but still very far from being the worst movie ever made, and that is Scream 3. Now, I have a lot of history with this movie just because it's known that I don't love this one as much as the others, but I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I still love watching it. I think I've rewatched it a couple times in the past few months just from falling asleep while watching it, but also just because I enjoy it and I want to see the ending because although the ending is by far one of the worst parts of the movie, there are a lot of fun parts in this movie too, and bringing back all the cast, which is a high point for this series. You have Wes directing the first four movies, and you have the whole cast coming back for the first five movies for sure, and they're even going to be in some of them in Scream 6, so we're going to have a lot of fun seeing all these faces over and over again. But with Scream 3, unfortunately, we had some things happen in real life that made the script change because originally the script was going to be that I hope happens one day still, in a way. Stu was eventually not dead from the first movie, and he was leading this group of high school kids from prison that were starting up the little ghost face cult in a way. And I thought that was a really interesting idea from Kevin Williamson, but it didn't come to fruition with the Columbine High School shooting that happened, unfortunately. And with that story being thrown out, we did something different where we brought Scream to Hollywood, which in a way I think still works, but it felt like the script was a bit messy because it was written so quickly. I didn't love the ending here with the whole thing of Sydney having a random brother in Hollywood that she never knew about and all the different stuff like that, but the fact that something not so very cool, the Weinstein brothers are producers in all of the first four Scream movies, but in the third movie, they kind of get a little jab at Harvey Weinstein, talking about the Hollywood producers taking advantage of all these different actresses that are really trying to get their spot in Hollywood, and they take advantage of them sexually and then trying to just throw them out to the wolves and don't even think about them the next day. And I like how they commented on that while he's still paying the money to make the movie. I thought that was pretty funny, even though it probably wasn't a part of the original script, and it might have been a little jab to kind of poke at people and try to show what's going on, but that didn't come to fruition until many years later. But I just thought that was kind of funny that that's in there, but I wish more people would have talked about it then instead of waiting for him to get even more success for the next 20 years until he was finally found out. But I digress on that point. Scream 3 has some cool stuff in it. I enjoy some parts in it. Courtney Cox's hair is by far the worst in this one, but the characters are all cool. It's fun to have Sydney back and her having the story of being so traumatized by everything and being out alone. I thought that was really cool, but they kind of ruin it right away when they bring her back in. And I don't know, there's just a lot of messy things going on in this story, but there's cool effects in it. The kills are pretty gnarly, and overall, I think it's a fun movie, but it's still like a 3 out of 5. It's an okay movie in Scream 3. If you like it, I love that you like it. Let me know in the comments what your favorite part is of Scream 3. I'd love to chat about it. One thing I do want to add on in Scream 3 is the voice changing technology. It's pretty insane that they thought about it then because nothing back then really worked like that, but the AI technology that's been coming out now, making the president say different things, and it's weird that the technology exists now because it's the laughable part of that movie, one of the laughable parts, I should say, but in the movie, it's kind of cheap and it's a very bad writing plot, but overall, the movie's fun. Now, next up on that list is Scream 2, and it's the last 4K I actually just got, but I really like this movie, but it is kind of messy at the same time too, because I guess there was some things that got out and leaked about the script too, so they had to rewrite that ending, and that's kind of obvious here too, because although the killers are interesting in some ways, the character of Mickey, played by Timothy Olyphant, is fun in a way, and it kind of makes sense that he's like this almost antithesis to Randy's character, but he's kind of almost too over the top, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense that he is the killer. But his obsession with horror makes sense in that way, but the fact that he has this disdain for these people, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. But I love Timothy Olyphant. I love seeing him in everything he's in. My mom actually said that she knew him as a kid and met. They don't really know each other that well, but they like met as a kid because his grandparents had like a cottage near where she lived. So that's kind of fun. But overall, this movie is, for what it is, it's cool. Ghostface at college, it's an interesting way to think about it, and Sydney's just trying to really get her life back and trying to live without thinking about Ghostface that much. But Gail wrote her book, and the Stab series movies are coming out, so it's kind of just revamping and making her trauma even worse, and it's kind of dealing with that, as well as all the different characters like Dewey trying to still be a little bit of a cop in a way, and dealing with his actual physical traumas and stuff. I thought that was really cool, but the movie just kind of falls off, and it's kind of boring at times, and the way they handle Randy in this movie is still frustrating to me. Why would you kill a character like that in the way you do, especially off screen, and just, it's just terrible. But overall, I think the movie is still fun. I say all these things, I'm trying to be critical of it, but I still love all of these movies, and I still encourage you. If you haven't seen Scream 2, there are a lot of cool scenes in here, a lot of crazy death scenes. We have Sarah Michelle Gellar getting thrown off a balcony. We have Omar Epps getting stabbed in the head through a freaking bathroom stall. And we have Jada Pinkett Smith, Will Smith's wife. You keep her name out of your fucking mouth, and she gets stabbed right in the stomach for that. And just a bunch of little crazy stuff in there. But overall, it's not my favorite of the Scream movies, but it's still a damn good slasher. So check it out. Now, number 3 on this list is one that was actually at number 2 before another movie came out, but that is Scream 4. Now, Scream 4 holds a lot of weight to me because it's also the first Scream movie I saw in theaters back in 2011, I think is when it came out. I was like 14 or 15 years old and had already become a huge fan of the first 3 movies, and I was so excited that we finally got a sequel after like, I want to say it was like 10 years after the third one came out. So it was interesting to see, and I love that they picked up the story and all the characters still feel the same. Like Sydney's still dealing with that trauma in her book and trying to like make something good out of all that trauma, as well as Gail kind of struggling to make her next big thing, trying to stay away from the Stab series now, and Dewey being the new sheriff of town in Woodsboro. And there's a lot of cool things with all those legacy characters, and then we bring in all these young characters that are also equally interesting. Kirby is one of my favorite characters that I'm so happy, and it's not really a spoiler, but she shows that she's still alive in Scream 5, which is really dope, and then they showed that she's going to be in the trailers in Scream 6, and I'm so excited to see that character again because she is awesome. She's a film lover like myself, but it felt like she kind of got cheaped out, and it didn't really show her dying in Scream 4, so we always thought, and Wes Craven himself said that she possibly wasn't dead, so we didn't see her die, and I'm happy that we finally get this character back, because she's awesome. But everyone else in the movie, Emma Roberts is fantastic as the killer. We get Rory Culkin, he's great too, and a bunch of other people in this cast. We got the kid from like Saw 2 that I actually watched last night. I really watched it because I saw him in Scream 4 recently, but that's funny. And there's so many cool things about it. All the openings and stuff at the beginning I thought were hilarious, and this movie just holds a lot of weight to me personally because, like I said, I saw it then. It's the first one I saw in theaters, and I thought for a long time it might be the only Scream movie I'd see in theaters, but I think it's fun. It kind of touches on like the Saw popularity at the time with its kills and torture porn-esque things, but there are some really gnarly kills in here, like the bedroom scene with the Emma Roberts' friend. I can't remember her name right now. Anthony Anderson getting that knife to the head. Just so many crazy, gnarly kills in this movie. But overall, I think it's a blast to watch. It's like a 5 out of 5 for me. If you love the Scream movies, I think this one's really fun. Do you think differently? Let me know in the comments. I've always thought that people like are kind of iffy about this one, but it's one of my favorites. So let me know what you think. And number 2 on this list is 5 Cream, aka Scream 2022, aka Scream, whatever you want to call it. It is fantastic and a great legacy sequel. I know that term gets thrown around a lot with like the Halloween movies coming out, and some of them aren't as good as some others, but I think this is the perfect legacy sequel because it not only pays tribute to what Wes Craven created with all of his satire and kind of commenting on the horror genre with Kevin Williamson writing, he also has the gnarly kills and the suspense that he builds in these moments and all of this stuff that these 2 directors called Radio Silence, I forget their names individually, but they pay so much homage to Wes and create something that I feel like he'd be proud to say was from his ideas and kind of like created in his own image. And I think that's so cool because not only, like I said, it's very critical on the horror genre today, commenting on like the psychological horror and elevated horror with like Hereditary and Babadook and stuff like that, which I'm a fan of those too, but it's fun that we get this slasher in 2022 that still is commenting on those as well as being a gnarly and still feeling like something that could have came out in the 80s craze of slashers with it being so violent and just gnarly. I mean, the kills with Clay Kid from like 13 Reasons Why getting stabbed in the neck, so gnarly, and his mom getting stabbed in the middle of daylight in the middle of Woodsboro in her front yard. Just such brutal stuff in there, and of course, we can never forget about the kill in the hospital, Dewey. I was almost crying in the movie theater both times I saw it. I watched it again yesterday and was almost in tears. David Arquette is fantastic and will be sorely missed in Scream 6 for sure, but his death was necessary, unfortunately, for this story and for it to feel as impactful as it did, and I love it for that. Because then we get Sydney back, and there's just so much great things in this movie with the legacy cast, the new cast members. I think Jenna Ortega kind of steals the show, and she's just having a phenomenal run right now with like Wednesday and X, and she's just having such a great time right now, and I think Scream and Scream 6 are going to be like the top notch for her and when it comes to my eyes, because I love her so much and I love these Scream movies, and I think Scream 5 is my number 2 movie. My number 1 is and always will be Scream, the original, with my glossy little steelbook case for it. It's so awesome. I adore this movie. Like I said everything beforehand. The cast, especially with Neve Campbell, we have Skeet Ulrich, we have Matthew Lillard, we have Randy, why can't I say his name right now, Jamie Kennedy. Everyone in here, top to bottom, is so phenomenal. In the way Wes directs the first movie, oh my gosh, there's so much there. I mean, upon rewatches, you can see that he's almost telling you that Randy is not a killer. I don't know why I said Randy. Stu and Billy are the killers, and we don't even know it. Like in that fountain scene, when Billy's like nudging Stu, like,
nobody said you did.
Thanks, buddy.
Besides,
stuff like that. It's just, there's so much there, and upon rewatching it, I find so much more to love about this movie and stuff that I've never noticed before, and I can't get enough of it. The kills are so brutal, the comedy and talking about the different horror movies and the different horror tropes, and still even falling into those horror tropes sometimes, like when Sydney runs up the stairs after saying that it's a stupid thing to do. Just so gnarly in the beginning. Oh my god, it's so iconic with Drew Barrymore being all over the posters. I mean, I have the other DVD here where Drew Barrymore's on the cover of it, and it's so funny because she's only in the first 10 minutes before she gets brutally murdered and hung up in a tree. And oh my god, no one was ever expecting that, because the little girl from E.T. is going to get murdered in the first 10 minutes of this horror movie, and she's on the poster and like all over the promotional material. It's one of the first times that I can really think about, other than when Psycho in like the 60s with Alfred Hitchcock, that someone that's supposed to be the star of the movie gets murdered like in the first act. And even in the first 10 minutes, like that's especially unheard of, but I think it's phenomenal. Wes Craven, you're sorely missed, but that's my ranking. It goes Scream 3, Scream 2, Scream 4, Scream 5, and then Scream 1, and I cannot wait for Scream 6. What did you think about it? I'm going to make a review of that too, because I'm going to see it this Friday, but let me know in the comments, what is your ranking, and how do you feel about these Scream movies? And I'd love to chat with you, and subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with all your friends that love Scream 2, so they can share your rankings with me and share their rankings, and I will see you next time after Scream 6 at the movies. Woo! And what's your favorite scary movie? Write in the comments, please. I'd love to know.